All right, Shalom. First, I want to give all honor and glory unto Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, Bashim Rakakwadash, the double unto the elder apostles, and under citation to you, Akim, that's laboring. Shalom to the whole elected nation of Israel. Now, in this video, pretty much it's going to be going in about the ongoing conflict between the Israeli occupation of the land of Israel and also the Palestinians, which are the so-called Arabs, and the Israelis, which are so-called Caucasian, European, so-called white people that occupy the land of Israel. Basically, you have Ishmael versus Amalek Edom. And Amalek, for those of you who don't know, Amalek is the grandson of Esau, Edom. And so when you go in the scriptures, it tells you that Amalek was the first of the nation, because Amalek is the chief tribe of Esau, Edom. All right, you go to the book of Genesis. I'll go to it. Excuse me. Bear with me 1 second as I pull up these things. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 36. Let's jump down. Genesis, I'll start at verse 8. It says, "Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir." Esau is Edom. And then when you go down, well, actually, I'll read verse 9 too. It says, "And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in Mount Seir." And verse 11 it says, verse 10 it says, "These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau, and Reuel, the son of Bashemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Galam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife." So right there, as you can see, Amalek is from the direct lineage of Esau, Edom. All right, so that's one point. All right, today they're known as Israelis or Jewish, and they occupy the land of Israel. All right, the 1925 edition of the Jewish Encyclopedia tells you that modern day Jewry is Edom, and so you have Edom in there. Edom is in the land of Israel. All right, and they've been occupying our land for some time now. Now this is I went to Google and clicked on the Wikipedia information to go into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and as you can see, I got it pulled right up. Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So let's go into it. Let's read it, and we're going to bring out. Well, I'm going to bring out some scriptures, and Lord willing, as edifying to those of you that may watch, and I'm just going to prove to you that the children of Israel have not returned into that land, and the prophecies that I'm going to bring out concerning the children of Israel returning to the land of Israel. It's going to show you that the people are not in that land. Obviously, this is not a hate video. This is not a video of misinformation. I'm just simply going into the 1611 King James Version Bible and proving based upon scripture that the children of Israel are not the people you think they is today, as far as the people that occupy that land. All right, and this is no news, pretty much. This is the gospel, true gospel. It's been out there for many of years now, and you even have amongst them that speak out against um, the Jewish state of Israel. So it's all on the internet. You can look it up, Google, YouTube, all throughout the internet, right? So it's matter of fact, I had some notes I took down. All right, grab my notes real quick because I want to bring up King David as well, because King David plays a very big part of the children of Israel going back to the land, because the scriptures tell you that King David will sit on the throne, all right, or he'd be over the nation of Israel, and also that the nation of Israel will seek David their king. So let's get into it. All right, Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the world's most enduring conflicts, with the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip reaching 54 years of conflict. Various attempts have been made to resolve the conflict as part of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Yeah, so many years these people have been warring in that land, and then even to go further, even the very day they got there, later on that evening or night, there was war. There was war that was going on between the two, the modern day Israelis and the modern day or the occupants of Israel and the occupants of Palestine, right? It says public declarations of claims to a Jewish homeland in Palestine, including the 1897 First Zionist Congress and the 1917 Balfour Declaration, created early tensions in the region. Yeah, the Balfour Declaration is when the top of the Israeli people, which are the central banking families, all right, they made this declaration, which is called the Balfour Declaration, to claim the land of Israel as their own. And that links up with Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel real quick. The book of Ezekiel, 36th chapter. All right, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 5, it says, "Therefore thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which I have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with the spiteful minds to cast it out for a prey." So, pretty much, that's what they done by the Balfour Declaration. They declared the land of Israel as their own. Right. So, back to the Wikipedia, it says, at the time, the region had a small minority Jewish population, although this was growing via significant Jewish immigration, following the implementation of the Mandate for Palestine, which included a binding obligation on the British government for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The tension grew into sectarian conflict between Jews and Arabs. Attempts to solve the early conflict culminated in the 1947 United Nations Partitions Plan for Palestine and the 1947 through 1949 Palestine War, marking the start of the wider Arab-Israeli conflict. The current Israeli-Palestinian status quo began following Israeli military occupation of the Palestinian territories in the 1967 Six-Day War. So right there, they've been in a constant state of war, and pretty much there's been no peace being brought to that region ever since the European uh, so-called white or so-called Caucasian. They call themselves Jewish. Since they got uh, the land into their possession, it's been just total war, you know. And a lot of those wars are instigated and started by the, the Jewish state of Israel. All right. They're the reasons for the U.S. and NATO destroying many countries around the Middle East region. And so it's been an ongoing thing. This whole war on terror was like a massive campaign on those Middle Eastern countries to try to subdue them under uh, Israeli uh, power and authority. All right. And what's been going on is that they haven't been able to do that, and so as a result, they're trying to gather all their uh, fellow counterparts of their own people, as far as of the House of Esau. You got the U.S., you got the U.K., France, um, you had Poland, Germany, um, who else? Italy. Um, I mentioned France, I believe. Yeah. So I mentioned France. You got Spain. You got the Netherlands, Australia. You got all those European countries that are part of NATO, and then even the ones that are in the EU. They came um, to the defense of those Israelis to help destroy those Middle Eastern countries that are against the occupation or the current Jewish state of Israel. So it's a lot deeper than uh, you know propagated jihadist, um, so-called radical jihadist terrorists. That's a farce. Even though Ishmael is a wild man, um, those are proxies to instigate war and justify NATO and members of the EU that are part of NATO to come in to destroy those countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, currently bombing Syria, um, instigating the war with Iran, um, and the list goes on. All right, Pakistan. All right, a lot of those countries are in turmoil because of those central banking families, which they go back to Amalek, okay, the chief house of Esau. It says, despite a long-term peace process, Israelis and Palestinians have failed to reach a final peace agreement. Progress was made towards a two-state solution with the 93-95 Oslo Accords, but today the Palestinians remain subject to Israeli military occupation in the Gaza Strip and in 165 islands across the West Bank. Key issues that have stalled further progress are security, borders, water rights, control of Jerusalem, Israeli settlements, Palestinian freedom of movement, and Palestinian right of return. Now, involving that, you know, when it talks about security, it says borders, water rights, control of settlements, right? You look at the reports and then the casualties or events that's been taking place, you'll quickly see that there's been a genocide, or they're trying to create a genocide on the Palestinians. All right. Now let me make this fact. Let me make this note. I'm sorry. Um, Among the two, you do have Israelites. You do have real Israelites of the Palestinians and the Israelis, especially of the Palestinians. You have real Israelites. So make that no mistake. But overall, it's Ishmael versus Amalek, Edom. So I want to make that point too. before I go further. It says the violence of the conflict in a region rich in sites of historic, cultural, and religious interests worldwide has been the subject of numerous international conferences dealing with historic rights, security issues, and human rights. And has been a factor hampering tourism in and general access to areas that are hotly contested. Many attempts have been made to broker a two-state solution involving the creation of an independent Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel. After Israel's establishment in 1948, in 2007, the majority of both Israelis and Palestinians, according to a number of polls, preferred the two-state solution over any other solution as a means of resolving the conflict. And when they mean by resolving the conflict, they want to resolve the war. So, now, first and foremost, I got some notes I've written down. And let's see here. Because, the reason I wrote it down is because I want to go in the scriptures and I want to actually show that the way they returned is not according to prophecy. And why I say that is because when you simply go into the scriptures, you can clearly see, okay, this is not of any private interpretation. The scriptures are plain to them that understand it. Now, I'm going to start at the book of Micah, chapter 4, verse 1. And I'm going to read down to verse 3 because I just read to you pretty much a article information regarding war, all right, that they've been having, or ongoing war they've been having for all these years. And let's go into prophecy when the children of Israel return. Showing you, and I'm going to show you that they shouldn't be at war if they're the people, as they claim. This is the book of Micah, chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua, shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it." That's not a heavy place of tourism, all right? Or even you don't see many people flowing into the land of Israel, all right? Because that region is a chaotic, or is in a chaotic state because of all the wars, because of all the military buildup of all the militaries throughout the globe that have assembled or gathered in the Middle East, or the Valley of Jehoshaphat, as the book of Joel, all right, the prophet Joel described it. All right, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh Shaphat. Yahweh is the Most High. Shaphat means judgment or decision. So that's what you see. All right, is regarding that. And matter of fact, let me touch on that real quick. Let's touch on that real quick. Joel 3. I want to go down to Joel chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up." And you see that constant build-up. Men of war are the military personnel. You see the build-up. You see whoever has the military might, they're all in the Middle East. All right, whether they're allies or in another organization. It says, verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Those countries that were once weak, now they have nuclear capability, or just missiles in general. They have nuclear capability, as far as being turned from a regular missile to a nuclear missile by just changing of the heads or the warheads, right? So that's the difference, right? It says, verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. All right, you see all the heathen over there, right? Even though you may have Jake among those militaries, the main point is those are heathen militaries, all right, controlled by heathen, all right, owned and operated and controlled by heathen. And you have Jake's in the military, of course. I'm not denying that. Or Israelites, so-called Latino Native Americans that are actually in that war because they joined the military, right? It says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about till the cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, which are the angels. Verse 12, let the heathen be awakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. That's what's going on, right? You don't see a peaceful play out of Middle Eastern tensions. You see heightened tensions geared towards war. Okay, and that's what you've been seeing for many years now. Shalaki. Bear me 1 second. All right, Shalaki. I had to get the door. So Shalaki for that. Back to the lesson. Excuse me. Let's go back to the book of Micah, the 4th chapter. That was at verse 1. Again, Micah 4:1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of Yahweh shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. Like as I was stating again, there's no many of people flowing into the Jewish state of Israel. Nobody's flowing over there. As a matter of fact, people are fleeing that region because of all the casualties. You have many migrants that are goddamn just fleeing for their life into different countries, European countries, you name it, all right? Because their countries or lands they was dwelling at has been destroyed thanks to the NATO, spearheaded by the U.S. And the rest of its partners or allies that have been on this destructive campaign, all right, and been destroying those countries. So those people are fleeing. You got people fleeing. They're like, man, look, where we live at is unbearable or inhabitable. So they're fleeing to other lands. All right. Verse 2. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh and to the house of the power of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. Now, do you see that? Do you see all the nations flowing into the land of Israel and asking or inquiring about the God of Jacob? No, you don't see that. All right. Is the law going forth from the land of Israel? No. I mean, to this very day, they have just like you have a Pride Month over here in the U.S. and throughout these first world countries. You have the same thing that goes on in Pink City, Tel Aviv, which they have an event that goes on there to celebrate abominable acts that are against the law of the Heavenly Father that was given to Moses and or taught, given it to the children of Israel to be an ordinance unto them. And the part of the ordinance is that the same sex should be lying down carnally with each other. All right. So that's one thing. That's a big thing, and a lot of witchcraft goes on within that land. and so on and so forth, man. There's many wicked, abominable things that go on in the land of Israel. All right. Verse 3, it says, "And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks." Yeah, because first and foremost, um, these are tools for farming. All right, and spears, um, a sword and spear are weapons of war, but pruning hooks and plowshares are for, agricultural purposes for the most part. All right, so people are not um, creating more instruments to better agriculture. No, they're creating instruments of war. You see the arms race. All right, the arm race is going on. A lot of countries are building up their military arsenal, especially with the missile system. All right, that's a fact. All right. It says, and he shall judge. I'm sorry. And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against a nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And this is all prophecy, man. Everything I've read thus far was prophecy. Something that was told before it happened. Right? And it happened. All right. Except for this one right here, which I just read in Micah the 4th chapter, 1 through 3. All right. And they shall learn war no more. Why are they at war? Why are they not beating their swords and spears into pruning hooks into plowshares? And the answer is because it's not a time for that. All right. The scriptures tell you about different times, right? Excuse me. Ecclesiastes 3:1, it says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted." So, which basically, the pruning hooks in the plowshares, right? And that you can evolve that, or you can implement those tools to planting and plucking up, right? Verse 3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build, right? So the point I'm making is there's a time for everything, right? Now let me jump down to verse 8. It says, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Now ask yourself, is this a time of war or is it a time of peace? All right, this is a time of war. Everything you see going on the planet Earth, all right, tensions of the military, even, well, I'll start at the governments, different governments, right? Or you could say different countries. They're all building up their military personnel and arsenal and weaponry because they're gearing up for war. They're not gearing up for peace. All right, I mean, just simple, man. Let's go. Let's get out of there. That was another note I want to go into, right? So let's go to let's see what I got here. I got a couple things written down. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel 34. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel 34, starting at verse 23. And it reads, "And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David." Up to go King David, right? Why is King David important? King David is important because he's going to reign over Israel in the kingdom of heaven. When the children of Israel return, when the kingdom of heaven is established, guess who's going to sit up on the throne under Yahweh Shai? King David. It says, "And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd." Where's King David? Why we don't see King David? Why is King David important? King David is special, man. The Most High made a covenant with him. All right, as far as or promise, I'll say he made a promise. I'm sorry, he made a promise to King David that he would establish his throne. All right, and the throne was going to be established forever too. By the way, now let's get a couple of things about King David. First, let's go to the book of let's see, let's go to yeah, let's go. I got a couple of things about King David too, because you cannot bring up the children of Israel returning, as far as the prophetic return, right? Without mentioning King David being in the land of Israel when the children of Israel return. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30, verse 9. It says, "But they shall serve Yahweh their power and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them." Now, King David was not living at this time during the Babylonian Empire. King David already passed on or passed away into the spirit world or to heaven. All right, he was already sleeping with his fathers. All right, so King David wasn't around during this time. What is it talking about? It's talking about future prophecy. All right, it says, "But they shall serve Yahweh their power and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, said Yahweh, neither be dismayed, or O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid." So when did the Israelites return from the captivity? All right, when have they been at rest? All right, when they have been in a state of not being afraid of anyone, because the occupants that occupy the land of Israel, they are in the constant state of the threat of war. They're afraid on all sides, and that's the reason why they have a nuclear arsenal within the land of Israel. All right. Notice how the Israelis have nuclear power, but the Palestinians don't. They're on a total uneven playing field. No, that's another thing, right? So they're afraid, man. They're afraid, you know, and it's evident that they're afraid, man. Why would they have nuclear arsenal in the land of Israel if they're the people? Does not the Most High protect the children of Israel? And then when they was disobedient, did not he bring evil unto them?